Hi everyone, today we'll be looking at solving multi-step equations that involve variables on both sides of the equal sign. So the first step that we need to do is move the variable to the left side of the equal sign. Once we've done that, we can then solve using inverse operations. So let's take a look at a couple examples. So I'm going to draw my line through the equal sign, and then I'm going to look for variable terms. And I see that I've got one here, and I've got one over on this side of the equal sign. So I need to move one to the other side. I'm going to take my 3y and I'm going to move it over here to the left side. By doing this, I'll have all my variables on the left and then my constants on the right. So when I do this, my 3y's here will cancel each other out, and I will be left with a negative 8y equals negative 4. And well, now my next step is to split up my negative 8 and the y. So I have to undo that multiplication that's happening between them, and I do that by dividing. So I'll divide both sides by negative 8. When I do negative 4 divided by negative 8, it gives me a decimal. And you know how much I don't like decimals. So I'd prefer to see that answer written as a fraction, 1/2. But we could also write it as the decimal 0.5. Okay, let's look at one more. So same kind of thing. I like to, again, identify where my variables are. And I see that I've got variables on both sides. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 2a to both sides. Again, I want them all to be on the left side when possible. Those cancel out. I do my math. 4 plus 2a gives me 6a. Bring down my minus 6, bring down that 18. Right, now I'm down to just a two-step equation. So I need to isolate my 6a. I'm going to do that by adding this 6 over. When I do that, that cancels out these 6. And I'm left with 6a equals 24. And then, of course, our last step is to divide both sides by 6, which gives us a equals 4. Alright, so now I would like you to try the next two problems on your own. Go ahead and pause the video now. Alright, so now let's add a step onto it. So like I've talked about in class, math builds on itself. So we're going to just kind of keep building onto these equations until we've reached the most difficult type of equation we'll do this year. So now that we know how to deal with an equation that has variables on both sides, let's add in the idea of having to distribute. So first, just like I talked about in class last time, we need to break that equation up into two parts. First, we simplify. So we need to make sure each side is in simplest form. The first thing we do is distribute. So we're going to distribute on the left side of the equal sign, if there's parentheses. Then we can distribute on the right side of the equal sign, again, if there's parentheses. Then we can move variables to the left side and constants to the right side of the equal. And then finally we can solve using inverse operations once again. Alright, so here we go. Let's take a look at this problem. So I've got this negative sitting here. So remember, we have that invisible 1. So I'm really distributing a negative 1. So negative 1 times 8x, and then negative 1 times 32 is going to give me negative 8x minus 32. I'm going to notice over on this side I didn't have any parentheses to distribute. So this was the only side that I've worked on so far. Alright, now I can work on getting my two variable terms together on one side. So I need to use those inverse operations. So this time I'm going to add 8x to both sides so that I can have my variables on the left. And once I've done that, I'm down to 4x minus 24 equals negative 32. Now I want to get my 24 over to this side with the 32. So I'm going to add 24 to both sides. And that will leave me with 4x equals negative 8. And finally, we can do our last step where we divide both sides by 4 and we get negative 2. All right, let's try one more. This time, my parentheses are on the left side. So I'm going to distribute that -4 to the 3 and -4 to the 3y. So we get -12 minus 12y. And then I didn't have anything to do over on this side, so I'm left with -12 plus 2y. All right, so we want to get our y terms together, this plus 2y and this minus 12y. So I'm going to move them to the left, so I have to subtract -2y from subtract 2y from both sides. And when I do that, these cancel out. We have to remember that that subtraction sign goes with this 12y. So if I were to cover up this 12 here, I'm left with -12y minus 2y. So now we're down to -12 minus 14y equals -12. Now that I have my variable term on the left, I now want to get this constant term over to the right. I'm going to do that by adding 12 to both sides, which will then cancel out these 12s here. And I'm left with -14y equals 0. Last step, divide both sides by -14, and we get y equals 0. All right, so let's go to the next page. I want you to try these two on your own. As a reminder, when you multiply by a fraction like 1/2, you're really just taking this number and dividing it by 2. So multiplying by 1/2 is the same as dividing by 2. All right, go ahead, pause your computer now. All right, so let's add on to it once again. So this time, we're going to look at combining like terms first. So remember that idea of simplifying means that we have to distribute and then combine like terms. So we've done a couple where we had to distribute. Now we're going to do a couple where we have to combine like terms first. And then at the end, we'll put it all together. So our first step, combine like terms on the left side of the equal sign, combine like terms on the right side of the equal sign, move variables to the left side and constants to the right side, and then finally solve using inverse operations. All right, so here we go. I don't have any parentheses, so I don't need to distribute. All I need to do is combine my like terms. So if I look at my left side, I have a variable term and a constant term. I cannot put those together. If I come over here, I've got a constant, a variable, and then a constant. I have two constants. I can put those together. So I've got this 5 right here, and I've got this plus 10. So if I were to cover up that 18x, I'd have the math problem 5 plus 10, which gives me 15. So I can bring this all down. So 8x minus 35 equals 18x plus 15. Right, now we can work on getting all of our variables over to the left. So we're going to start with this 18x and subtract it to both sides. And when I do that, those cancel out. And then we're left with -10x minus 35 equals 15. Okay, next we're going to add 35 to both sides. And that's going to leave us with 50, and -10x equals 50. Last, we're going to divide both sides by 10, which gives us x equals -5. And let's try this one here. So again, I'm going to look for parentheses on either side. I don't have any. I'm going to put my focus just on my left side. I'm going to look for like terms. So I have a variable, a constant, and a variable. So I have two variable terms. I need to put both of them together. So if I think about it in terms of those variables, I've got this 6x and I've got this -2y. Or I meant 6y and then this negative 2y. Those are the ones that I have to put together. So 6y minus 2y is going to give me 4y. So now I have 4y, brought down my minus 10, equals negative 5y plus 8. Now I can get my variable terms together on one side. These ones here will cancel out. And we're left with 9y minus 10 equals 8. Next, I can get my constants together to the right, and I'm left with 9y equals 18. And then last, we can divide both sides by 9, and we have y equals 2. Alright, so now I want you to go ahead and try these next two on your own. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, so now let's put it all together. So when we solve multi-step equations, it's a two-part process. The first part is to simplify. So when we're simplifying, right, we want to make sure that we simplify each side of the equation separately. So make sure the left side is completely simplified, then make sure the right side is completely simplified. So in order to do that, we ask ourselves, can we distribute? Can we combine like terms? And then, once we've distributed and combined like terms, we then move all of our variables to the left side. Once we've done that, we have a two-step equation that we can solve using our inverse operations. Alright, so let's go ahead and give this a try. Draw my line, and I'm just going to focus on the left side. I'm going to ignore my right side altogether for now, and just focus on this. So, I can take my 2, distribute it to the 4x, take my 2, and distribute it to the 7. And I get 8x plus 14 plus 4. Now once again, I'm only focusing on this side, and I'm looking for like terms. I've got a variable, constant, constant. Alright, so these two right here can be added together. 8x plus 18. And then finally I look at this, and I have nothing more left to do on my left side. So now I'm going to come over to this side. I have no parentheses, and I have no like terms. Alright, so now our next step is to get our variables together. I've got an x here and an x over on this side. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides, and that will cancel those out. And we're left with 7x plus 18 equals 32. Next, I can subtract my 18 from both sides, which will cancel those out. And we're left with 7x equals 14. Last step is to divide both sides by 7. X equals 2. Alright, let's do this last one together. First I'm going to draw my line, and then I'm going to look, do I need to distribute anything on the left side? I do have a set of parentheses, so I need to distribute. We need to find the number that is stuck directly to the outside. I don't have a number here, so it's really just that invisible 1. So we're going to distribute that invisible negative 1, because there's a minus sign, that means it's negative, to the y and to the 7. Next, we're going to look for like terms on the left side. I'm going to deal with everything on my left side before moving over to the right. So I've got this variable here, this constant, variable, constant. So I've got 15 minus 7. 15 minus 7 gives me 8 minus the y equals negative 14 plus y. Alright, now I can work on getting my variables together. So I can subtract y to both sides. And I'm left with 8 minus 2y equals 14, or negative 14. Now I can subtract my 8 to both sides. Negative 2y equals 22. And finally, divide both sides by 2. Y equals 11. Okay, you have 2 more problems left to try on your own. Give them a try, and I'll take any questions the next time we have class.